I have the real privilege of introducing our next speaker of the afternoon, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, Marcelo Ebrard. Secretary Ebrard will address the evolving nature of the strategic importance of the U.S.-Mexican relations, the Mexican government's approach to foreign trade and USMCA, and clearly, if he doesn't address it, I'll ask him, Mexico's relationship with some of the other partners in the hemisphere. There is so much riding on many of these issues today. A stronger and more tightly integrated U.S.-Mexico relationship has the potential to underwrite prosperity across the hemisphere. And through USMCA and the assurances and investment certainties it provides to the business community, North America can continue to be the engine of growth for economies all over the world. And furthermore, with a strong USMCA, we can become, North America can be the most competitive region in the world. This is a historic moment for Mexico, and the mandate for social progress and inclusive growth that President López Obrador was elected to fulfill. Secretary Ebrard, we are honored to have you with us today to convey how Mexico is leveraging its foreign policy to achieve its promises of a better and stronger Mexico. And I know you travel all the time because you're always in the air. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, His Excellency, Marcelo Ebrard.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to share with you certain ideas about Mexico and the future of our country and the relationship with the United States, Canada, and the countries of the hemisphere. Well, for the first time in modern times, Mexico is being governed by the left through an electoral process. And you can think that our program is about expand or accelerate debt, increase taxes, or make an atmosphere hostility about businesses or private sector, or even a non-North American vision about the future. Several, expected that those were the main picture of the new government. But it's not the case. What are the main goals of the government in Mexico? The first one is about corruption. You can ask, well, since when corruption as a main goal for a government is a left patrimony or a leftist idea? Well, let me explain why it's so important in Mexico. Because in Mexico, corruption is intimately linked to the privilege system. All the system is designed by privilege. We have free elections several years ago, 2000, 2012, or other years. We have different parties govern the country, but we have the same privilege system, which is really interesting, because we expected in Mexico that when we have free elections and changes between parties, the corruption would be reduced in the first years. But that didn't happen. So corruption is about privilege, inequality, and almost the main reason that explains why in Mexico we don't have the rule of law that we want. That is the first step in order to have foster the economy, accelerate the innovation in the country, and make a more competitive country. So corruption is the first goal for this government because of those reasons. And in Mexico, it's not just another goal. It's the most important one. Maybe this goal explains the past election, why the people choose López Obrador instead of other parties. The second goal is about poverty. Let me say another way, in other words. It's about unsatisfaction about poverty and the idea that it's going to take maybe 50 or 60 years, other generation, in order to have the opportunity to be in the middle class in our country. 52 million people in poverty. And if you maintain the same trends in the country, they are going to spend more than 4 years in order to have the opportunity to be as a part of the middle class of the country. So this is the other main goal of our country, is about reduce poverty as fast as we can, to open new hope for the people, new ways to be in the middle class of Mexico. In the south of Mexico, we have the poorest, and we have 62 indigenous communities, larger ones, waiting since several years ago some opportunity. For instance, they don't have internet. Their health system is the worst in the country. The educational system is not working. And everyone, almost the most important part of the elites of the country used to think that, well, they can wait for a new situation in the next maybe 30 or 40 years. Nothing happens about that. That used to be the argument when Mexico signed the NAFTA agreement in the 90s. Never happens. So we need to open another process in Mexico in order to give them an opportunity. Health system, educational system, access to internet, and a lot of initiatives that we are already taking in the country. The third goal is about how can we foster the economic growth. We need to add value to our economy. We need innovation. We need to solve old problems. We need to use new tools also, new ideas, in order to increase our capacity to add value to our economy. Is that possible? Sure. But we need to do more than just wait that the market solve the issues. It's not about if the state should find the solutions or the market, the old debate. It's more about what if we have a common vision about the future, invest more money together, design a future for our country with a common vision about innovation and technology, energy, and other issues. We have an idea that Mexico can grow faster than 2%, as it did in the past 20 years. The fourth goal is about safety. So we are not going to have safety in our country if we don't have solved the previous three issues: corruption, access to changes in our society, and faster economic growth. But anyway, we started to have right now a new design about safety in the country, to organize a national guard with human rights strong approach to reorganize all the institutions in Mexico, to have a general attorney with independence from the government, from the executive branch. We expect that we can do that, and we should do that, and to show that it's more effective than the old system. And finally, those are the 4 ones. And those 4 means change the vision of our country, which has prevailed in Mexico for the past 4 decades. We wait a long time to have an opportunity to change this vision that I mentioned that prevailed in Mexico during almost 4 years. That's the meaning of that leftist or change government in Mexico. Someone says, well, those are populist ideas. Well, whatever that means. Populism is like an explanation when you don't understand exactly what is going on. The program of the government is about those 4 goals right now. What's our approach about the North American region? Well, we see with optimism the future of the region. We have one of the most competitive regions of the world. We are going to have several fields for competitiveness in front of Asia and other countries and other regions. Energy is one of them. But there are several. So we maintain an optimistic point of view about the future. We want to participate. We want to join a North American point of view. And I know that can be very, very difficult sometimes. You cannot design something like that just thinking in the next election. So we need to really think in the next 34 years. And we are in this idea. That's why we are here. And we are working with Canada, with US, and our partners in the Pacific Alliance and the Latin America, all the hemisphere, in order to work together. It makes sense. We have several opportunities like never before. So those are our points of view in an overview about them. And thank you again for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So I'm going to start by asking you a question, and then maybe we'll open it up to the audience. You mentioned the Pacific Alliance.
Sure.
And I thought it might be interesting to hear your view on the importance of the Pacific Alliance going forward for Mexico.
We are going to have just next days a meeting in Mexico City with my partners, the foreign ministers and the economy ministers, in order to accelerate the works around Pacific Alliance. I think that's very important for Mexico. It's one of our top priorities right now, to accelerate the work in the Pacific Alliance atmosphere, which is, I should say, also very, very productive one. It's one of the tables that you want to be in order to work with others is Pacific Alliance.
I'm going to ask you one other question. You have been incredibly articulate, along with your president, on development in the south of Mexico and the importance of investment and development in the Northern Triangle as a way to stem this awful immigration challenge. And so maybe you could expand on that a little bit. By the way, I personally believe we should open our borders, but that's me, not anybody else.
Well, we are thinking on the region. There are, Mexico is growing in terms of population slowly and slowly. 1.2, 1.1, maybe next year. It's not the case for Guatemala or Honduras. Honduras is one of the poorest countries on Latin America. So we think that we should pay more attention to the development of those countries and include them as far as we can in our design for the south of the country. Why the south of the country is so important for the new government? Because you have there the poorest part of the country, and as I mentioned it, the largest part of our indigenous communities. So we are going to have several infrastructure investments there, and there are several programs there which has already started by Mr. President, and we are trying to share those investments with the North Triangle of Central America. We asked the United Nations Commission for Latin America to prepare a plan, and they are going to present the plan this month in order to follow the plan and foster the economy development of the area.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience? If not, I will continue to ask questions. Right here, please. Identify yourself.
Yes, Gonzalo Rodriguez, Juan Lobos. Mr. Ebrard, I just want to ask you about Mexico's position regarding Venezuela. It's quite ambiguous because Mexico rightfully claimed, well, non-intervention, but isn't non-intervention just a way of doing nothing and supporting Maduro and supporting a dictatorship because it's from the left?
Well, I'm going to leave you a copy of our Constitution, because in our Constitution we have a tradition in Mexico. Let me explain what is non-intervention. Non-intervention was a Mexican position during the 30s in the past century, in order to avoid the use of recognition as a political weapon in order to obtain certain things from the country in relationship with other country with the recognition of the government. When you have difficulties between two governments or civil wars, this is the origin. So we have this mandate in the Constitution. It is not a superficial issue. It's about what the Constitution allows you to do or not. But this is not a pretext in order to say we are not going to have any position. We present a position. We said, hey, we need a democratical and pacific solution to this conflict. We propose with several countries, 15 countries of America, Latin America and Caribbean countries, to organize an agenda with a time period, agree from the starting point, and to have a review on electoral processes, freedoms, and several important issues. So we proposed this idea in a different point of view from those who support the intervention idea of military intervention, which could be a great mistake, I think, or the people who expect that the regime is going to be defeated only by sanctions or just to wait for a division between the army of the Venezuela. So we said there are two strategies here. One strategy is the strategy that I have described just before. Another strategy is to make something similar that Mexico proposed in Central America in the 80s and 90s, which works by the time, which is organized dialogue, to have an international imperative about those dialogues, and to have results on the dialogues. So there are two different ideas in order to solve the conflict. It's not to say we are not here, we are not to have a position. And by the way, I came from the left, but we are a democratic people. We think and we have commitment with human rights and freedom. And there are no point of comparison with Maduro regime. Thank you.
Back here.
Hi, Jesus Esquivel from the Mexican magazine Proceso. Canciller, In the issue of immigration, President Trump continues to threaten Mexico one day, the next day on Twitter, and tried to say that Mexico, besides whatever AMLO says about it, is doing the dirty work on immigration for the US, keeping the Central Americans in Mexican territory and trying to stop them to cross the international bridges to come to the US and ask for the asylum. From my point of view, the AMLO government has never been so clear on what exactly are you guys doing, or what you guys discuss or agree with the Trump government. Can you please explain clearly to us what exactly are you guys working with the US government?
Well, I explained in Mexico, and I repeat here, that there are two different approaches about migration issues. Very different, quite different, I should say. And as far as you have different approaches, you have tensions. If you don't have tensions, so there are similar approaches. There are no contests about anything. If you have tweets every day, the reason is that we have different points of view. The facts are that, yes, you have more people coming to the United States from Central America. That's true. And you have the reports and the figures are public. And we defend not exactly what's the difference in our migration policy. We are not in favor of open doors, no border policy in the case of Mexico. But this is not because of the United States. This is because of our law. You need to register each people who enters Mexico today by the current law. But we are not going to put those people, the migrants, on the criminal side just because they want to move. This is the difference, I think, the main one. So we are talking all the time with the U.S. authorities, which is not new. The migration is a great issue between Mexico and the United States the past at least 40 years. And we present our points of view. Our point of view to the United States mainly is about, doesn't make sense to reduce investment in Central America when you have an increase in the flows to the United States, because the United States have a very good economic situation right now, which is not the case in Central America.
We have a last question. Can you use the microphone right there? And then identify yourself.
Should I ask it in Spanish or in English? Better? In English? Okay. So, yeah. Armando Armas, Venezuelan congressman. So I was wondering if Mexico is willing to support some sort of actions regarding the persecution of people linked with the narco and regime, with Maduro regime, because according to our investigations, there are many corrupt and people linked with narco and linked with the crimes against humanity, trying to hide themselves, or trying to see Mexico, among many other places, as a safety haven, and trying to use this neutrality or leveraging on this neutrality policy. To my mind, as Desmond Tutu said, when you are neutral in situations of oppression, you choose the side of the oppressor. And I was wondering, and there are many specific cases. I can talk to you about one. I was elected by a district, and there's the former mayor of a district that I was elected from, Jonathan Marin, is in Mexico nowadays. And I don't know if you guys are going to do something about it. Thanks.
As I explained to the audience, the Mexican position is not about no position. We have a position. We present an idea and a proposal with 15 countries to have a dialogue. And Mr. Guaido says no. Because excuse me, I listen to you? Thank you. So, we are talking with Mr. Guaido and all the opposition, and also with the regime, with the same position. Hey, you need to speak each other. It's important to reach an agreement, to start with maybe little things. But this is our proposal. And if you are asking me if Mexico neutrality position, which I explained is not the case, allow someone from foreigner to have illegal activities in Mexico, of course not. If there are any kind of illegal activity from who you want from Venezuela or other countries, we are going to present charges and follow the law. Sure.
So I would like to ask one last question and end on Mexico.
Yeah, sure.
Because then we have to end. So your ambassador is doing a great job. We're trying to, and so is the private sector, is very enthusiastic about the USMCA getting approved in the United States Congress. So in your mind, as you sit in Mexico, what's your greatest hope for walking down the path of getting this approved in both Mexico, Canada, and the U.S.?
Well, I should say that we expect and we are working very hard in order to convince our Congress to ratify the TMEC or USMC.
Or Mexico-U.S.
Or Mexico-U.S. or the NAFTA 2 or whatever. But at the end, the more optimistic wonder for us is to have a new step, quality different step towards the future in order to increase the add of our value of our economy and to fulfill more productive ties with the United States economy. For instance, the aeronautical industry in Mexico, which is growing very fast, or medical service and supplies, or our capacity to increase the add in our exports in the short term. So to close the gap in several fields in a common vision with the United States and Canada, why not? That's the idea. It's not about commercial trade. It's about something more sophisticated.
It's about a vision for North America.
Yeah, I think.
Well, with that, Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you for flying from Mexico to be with us today and for your comments on so many issues that are important in the relationship between the United States and Mexico, but most importantly for your vision of development and, of course, your vision for North America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you.